Here's a Turing machine question from last year's Leaving Cert, and basically here's the diagram. The diagram has four states: state 0, state 1, state 2, state 3. We're to assume that we start in state 0, and the double circle indicates that we finish or terminate at state 3. We can see that we've got some self-referential states. S1 can actually reference itself, and so can S2, depending on the rules that are passed in. Now normally you might get a combination of read, write and then move, but in each movement it is assumed that you move one step right on the tape. So bearing that in mind, let's see if we can work on this. So currently the tape is reading a 0 and we are in state 0. So what do we do when we read a 0 in state 0? So we find state 0. We've got two instructions here. We either read a 1 or we read a 0. So we're going to ignore this one. We're going to read this one. Read a 0. We're also going to write a 0. So you write a 0 and you're going to move the tape bed one step to the right. And if that's the case, now you can see here the arrow is, this is the channel we're moving down, so we're going to transition from state 0 to state 2 with that. So then we just write out the rest of the letters. Okay, and that's the next, or that part. So moving on here now, we are going to be reading a 1 this time, and we're in state 2 here now. So we're in state 2, which is this. We've got three possible instructions here that we can do. So we either read a B, read a 0, or read a 1. So in this case, we are reading a 1 on our tape head. So what are we going to do? If we're reading a 1, we're going to write a 0. So let's do that. We're reading a 1, we're going to write a 0. We're going to move the tape head one place to the right. And also what happens, so we're in state 2, if we read a 1, we're going to transition to state 1. So they're the key things that you should be filling in. And once you've got all of that done, we just complete the rest of the tape there. That's a 0, that's a 1, that's a 0, and that's a B. So, in the next one here now, we are currently now in state 1, and we're reading a 1. So what's going to happen if we read a 1, if we're in state 1? So we're in state 1. And if we read a 1, so we're going to do self-referential, we're going to reference ourselves, self-reference. So if we read a 1, we're going to write a 1 and we're going to stay in S1. So if we read a 1, we're going to write a 1, move the tape head one place to the right, and we're going to stay where we are, S1. So again, we're in S1. If we read a 1, we're going to, so read, write, read a 1, write 1. We're going to move, stay in S1, and we're going to move the tape head one place to the right. So filling in the rest here, 0, 0, 1, 0, B. Right, so we're still in state 1. We're reading a 0 now. So what happens this time if we read a 0? So we're in state 1, we read a 0. So we're going to write a 1, and we're going to transition to state 2. And if we're reading a 0, we're going to write a 1. So reading 0, we're going to write a 1. Move the tape bed one place to the right, and we're going to transition to state 2. So again, looking up there, we're in state 1, we're going to read a 0, we're going to write a 1, we're going to transition to state 2. So now we're filling the rest of the tape. Now we're in state 2, we're reading a B. So what's going to happen in state 2? State 2, we're reading a B, we're going to write a B. Tape moves over here to the right, and we're going to transition to state 3, our terminating state, and these are why the amount of boxes were left like that. And that is that question finished.